Yeah, hi, good afternoon, guys. I'm sharing my screen and we'll start today's session. Okay, today we'll let us discuss about MVC pattern. MVC pattern. What does it mean by MVC? MVC. M meaning model. Okay, V meaning view. V meaning view, and C meaning controller. C meaning controller. C meaning controller. So we are using MVC pattern in the AEM. We'll try to understand what does it mean by MVC pattern. Okay, we'll try to understand what does it mean by MVC pattern. For example, last sessions we had created the components. Okay, this is the EN page. If I edit the EN page, if I edit the EN page, if you observe, this is the URL. When I'm calling, when I'm hitting this URL, that request will goes to. If I scroll down, if I scroll down, this is the search component. This is the search component, and within this page, so in the last previous sessions, we had created the component, and we had that component on the page. We had that component on the page. Okay, whenever you hit this path, so what will happen internally? So the string will create. We need to remember two paths. One path is component location path. Another path is content node path. Content node path. In the same way, whenever you drag the component on the page, whenever you drag the component on the page, so Sling, we have the internally Sling framework. So the Sling framework default generated one path. So that path should be like this. So first, whenever you hit this path, so I'm taking, whenever you hit this path, I'm copying this one. The request will goes to here. So I'm saving this one. Okay, whenever you hit that path, whenever you hit that path, so the request will goes to. So whenever you hit this path, the Sling internally generate one path. That path should be under the content node. For example, if I author the data here, if I author the data here, the every data will be stored in the content node. If I save this one, and if I open localhost 4502, and if I open this one, Adobe Experience Manager, Tools, and CRXD. That page is EN page. If I open content node, if I open content node, content inside the content will be having demo project, and US page. Under the US will be having the EN. So inside the EN will be having the search component. So who has generated this path? Who has generated this path? Sling has, by default, Sling has one behavior. That behavior is, it will be generate this path. Okay, it will be generate this path. Okay, now this is the path. This is the path, and what I'm saying, this is the path. Now I'm taking this one, and this component has container, and these are the fields we have added our dialog. So I would say, if I click on the node, you will get the. If I click on the node, okay. If I click on the node, you will get the properties panel. You will get the properties panel. So I'm taking this one. This entire thing I am saying, this is the this is the controller. This is the one here I am pasting here. This is the controller. The screenshot is very too small now. I'm going here. I'm taking the screenshot. Guys, understood till now? Whenever you request the URL, that request will goes to the that request will goes to content node. In the content node itself, in the content node, this is the URL. So we are trying to access the URL. This is the URL. Whenever you are trying to access the URL, that request will goes to node. This is the content node. This is the content node where this path I have taken the screenshot from this location. From this location. Are you guys clear with my point? So this here we have the nodes. This we can say nodes. So here we'll be mentioning the sling resource type. So based on this sling resource type, the sling will move. Meaning here the controlling are based on the nodes. Like whatever the sling resource type we are mentioning. So based on that, the sling will move and fetch the data. That's why this panel I am saying this is the controller. This one is the controller. Controller. This is the controller. This one is the controller. Are you guys clear with my point? When I'm hit the URL, when I'm hit the URL, the request first it will go to the content nodes. The request first it will goes to the content node. In the content node, we'll be having the nodes. Text is the one node, and I would say text area is the one node. For these nodes, we are mentioning the sling resource type. We are mentioning the sling colon resource type. Sling colon resource type. Based on based on this property, the sling will move. So the basically the thing is we need to understand here the controller. Sling controls the nodes will control the sling requests. Nodes will control the sling requests. So that's why we are calling this is the controller. That's why we are calling the controller. Okay. Now this is the content nodes, and here we will be having the nodes and whatever the like the property we have mentioned. So based on that properties, nodes will control the requests. Nodes will control the requests. Are you guys clear with my point? And this and this is the node path, and the components will be stored in this area. Apps, demo, and components and search component. If I take the search component, this is the search component. Now simply you can observe here we have the HTML file. Here we have the HTML file. File, image properties. So I'm mentioning the size. Okay. So here I'm taking. Is it visible or not visible? Not visible. Okay. So here this is the component location. This location where the location is available inside the apps. Apps meaning inside the apps, and here the our search component. The component is the search. Here we have the search.html. Here we have the search.html. HTML meaning HTML is the presentation layer. So that's why we are calling this is the view layer. This one is the view layer. This one is the view. This one is the view layer. Whenever you send the request, so the request will look for the nodes. Is there any string resource type is there or not there? So is there any string resource type? So based on that, so here we have mentioned the path like demo apps, demo and components, that component. So based on this path, the request will goes to this one. The request will goes to here. The request will goes to here. Uh, Okay, fine. Based on this one, based on the string resource type, based on this string resource type, the request will goes to actual path of the component. There it will look for the .html file. .html file meaning that is the presentation layer. That is the presentation layer. So there in the presentation layer, we will write the code like this. Like in the last session, we had written the code like this. We had written the code like this. So I will show you that one. How will you write the div some like a data sly test, like last session. Now we had used this code data sly test equal to dollar symbol properties dot like name, properties dot name. And in the same way the div has closed here. So and here we need to mention uh, whenever the condition is satisfied, then it will execute. So inside properties dot name, properties, our block will be executed. Our block will be executed. In the HTML file, we had written two languages. One is the HTML, second one is the HTML. One is the HTML, one is the HTML. This is the one language we had written. Second one is the HTML. HTML. HTML meaning hyper templating language. This name is also called as Sitely. Sitely. But this is the old name actually. Sitely is the old name. Sitely is the old name. Sitely is the old name, and this one is the new name. HTML. And HTML is the presentation language. HTML meaning hypertext markup language. This is the markup language. Hypertext, hypertext markup language. Hypertext markup language. Hypertext markup language. And HTML is the Sitely language. In this div tag is comes belonging to HTML language. Whatever the this one data SLY test, these are comes under the HTML language. HTML language. Are you guys clear with my point? If you want to write the HTML language, you mandatorily use the HTML language. You mandatorily use the HTML language. They both are not same. They both are different. But if you have aware of the HTML, then you can easily write the HTML language also. Then you can easily write the HTML language also. Then you can easily write the HTML language also. Are you guys clear with my point? So inside the HTML language, we had written that is HTML language. This is the HTML language. Inside the HTML language, we are using the HTML. Here, the question is why we are using the HTML language, meaning Sitely languages, which is used to include, for example, our page. This page, if you want to write any business logic, where will you write? You can write the business logic. We can write the business logic in backend. This is the backend. This backend you can call as the model. This backend you can call as the model. For example, if I write the subclasses demo.java, demo.java, and test.java, these are the Java classes. These Java classes I have written in the inside the I have written inside the I have written in the backend, and we cannot directly write the Java logic directly in the HTML. For that purpose, what you will do, simply you can write the Java backend in the model. Model meaning the business logic. The business logic we can write in the back end, and that business logic you can include. We can include. We can include in the HTML. We can include in the HTML. So that is the scenario basically. So for example, here if I want to include that one, right now I will write like this. The same logic. Right now I will write like this. Okay, this is the Java file. This is the Java file. We have the Java files here. So in the Java files, we'll be having the business logic. Business logic is available inside the Java files. If you want to include, this is the only HTML. Directly in the HTML, we cannot write the business logic. We need to write the business logic somewhere, and that business logic we need to include in the HTML. That's why HTML is coming to the picture. We cannot write the business logic directly in the HTML. We need to write the business logic in somewhere. That place is the model. Model meaning backend. Model meaning the backend. So the business logic we need to write somewhere, and we need to include that business logic into the HTML. How will you include? So for using the HTML, we need to compulsory we need to use the HTML tags. We need to use the HTML tags. So for example, if you use this demo.java, so how will you include? Meaning simply you can I would say model equal to this path name you should give here, demo.java, 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 and then close the curly braces. Now what will happen? So are you guys clear with my point? The business logic we did written in the somewhere. The business logic is demo.java and test.java. And so in the directly we cannot write directly our business logic, we cannot write directly in the HTML. So that's why we need to use the model, and that logic we should include inside the HTML. We should include inside the HTML. We should include the inside the HTML. So for including, we will use two languages. One is the HTML. HTML meaning is the hypertext templating language, hypertext markup language. Second one is the hypertext templating language. Whole name is the Sitely. These two languages are different. If you aware of HTML, you can easily understand the HTML also. You can easily understand the HTML also. You can easily understand the HTML. You can easily understand the HTML also. So right now you should remember this one is the controller. This is the controller. This is the view. Why you are saying view? Meaning in the view layer we'll be having .html files. That's why HTML is nothing but presentation only. HTML is nothing but presentation only. So that's why you are calling as the view layer, presentation. HTML is nothing but presentation layer only. Okay, HTML is nothing but presentation layer only. So in the HTML, we cannot write directly business logic inside the HTML. Inside the HTML. That's why we will write the backend logic somewhere. We can write the backend logic somewhere. That is the model. That is the model. We had written the business logic in the model view, and we need to include that business logic inside our HTML. That is our scenario. Are you guys clear with my point? For including, we will use two languages. One is the HTML and second one is the HTML. HTML meaning is the hypertext templating language, and HTML is the Sitely. So with the help of these two languages, we can include our business logic inside the HTML. So based on this, it will read our data and our business logic will work. Our business logic will work out. Are you guys clear with my point? This is this flow we need to understand. We need to understand how the process is happening internally. Then only you know the content. If you observe here, content demo USEN. The data is coming from this area. Immediately the string will goes to this area. Content, this is the content node. It will goes to the content node, and there will be having the nodes. For that nodes, so that node who has created Sling default behavior is creating the content nodes. Creating the content nodes. Based on the content nodes, it will look for the .html file. Is there any .html file? No, there is no .html file. Then what the Sling will do? So it will look for any Sling resource type is there or not there. So Sling resource type is there. Based on the Sling resource type, there we have mentioned the Sling resource type component location. Based on that Sling resource type, the request will goes to component location. There it will check for the there it will look for the .html file. Yes, here we have the .html file. So it will look what the code available inside the .html file. What code is available inside the .html file. If you write like this, then it will read this one. So based on this one, it will uh, render the data on the page. Render the data on the page. So, but we cannot write business logic directly on the HTML. So that's why we are writing the business logic by using the Java, and the files will be available in some way that that view is the model view. That is the model. This one is the view, and this one is the controller. This one is the controller. Why we are saying this is the controller meaning? So base the nodes like the controllers have the nodes will control the Sling request. Sling request based on the property, the Sling will move to component. The request will move to component. The request will move to components. The request will move to component. So this is the basic scenario, I would say, about the MVC pattern. MVC pattern is a very, very important actually. MVC pattern. So in Sightly language, this is the very here we'll be having 13 block statements basically. 13 block statement we have. 13 block statements. The block statements are like the first one is the data SLY use, and the second one is data SLY test, and data SLY include, and total 13 block statements will be there. Data SLY text, and data SLY list, data SLY repeater, data SLY repeater, and data SLY unwrap, data SLY unwrap, and next thing data SLY template, and data SLY text, data SLY text, data SLY text. So okay. Data SLY include. Oh, okay. So total we'll be having 13 block statements actually, okay? 13 block statements. So if you are aware of these 13 block statements, that's enough. If you are aware of the 13 block statements, you can easily manage this area. You can easily manage this area. You will have good confidence at Sightly language. Sightly